Why is it so painful to sit down and work? Why did I eat an entire bag of Hershey's candy cane flavored kisses when I was 12? Ancient Greek philosophers came up with a word to describe this kind of behavior: akrasia, or the lack of self-control. I have a little voice in the back of my head that tells me what I should do according to my personal goals and values. That voice is my better judgment. But for some reason, actually doing what that voice tells me to do feels like the equivalent of skinning myself alive. Socrates argued that no one willingly chooses to act against their better judgment. He believed that people only seem to act without self-control because of their lack of understanding. He said, "How is it possible that, if one judges action A to be the best course of action, why would anyone do anything other than action A? Well, how is it possible? I know that it would be better for me to not eat an entire packet of chewy Chips Ahoy cookies and a family-sized bag of Cheetos in one sitting, but I would do it anyway. When I couldn't raise my right leg after tweaking my back from a deadlift, I knew that it would be better for me to give myself time to recover and not to immediately try deadlifting the same weight again 3 days later. But I did it anyway." The most painful form of this apparent lack of self-control is procrastination. I want to do something, but I don't do it, and choose a clearly worse course of action. Instead, I choose to waste my time by doing absolutely nothing at all, scrolling on my phone, looking at things that I do not want to see and that I do not care about. Why do we procrastinate? Because the pain of action is greater than the pain of stagnation. I knew someone in high school who could have won a gold medal if procrastination was an Olympic sport. He would put off all of his major assignments, his essays, his projects, and finish them all right before they were due. This is how good he was. I had 40-minute long class periods, and the first class of the day started at a little past 8 a.m. I managed to not be absurdly late for once and get to school at 7:55 a.m. There's time, so I decide to use the bathroom. There's this shelf on the side of the wall where you can put down your backpack and whatever you're holding while you take a piss. I walk in, and I see the master of procrastination bent over the shelf, frantically scribbling an entire 5-page history essay or something with a cheap plastic mechanical pencil on loose-leaf paper. I know for a fact that the thing is due in 45 minutes, but I think to myself, no way is he writing an essay in the bathroom right before class. He's probably just revising it because he wants a good grade. So I ask him what he's doing. He says, "Yeah, this is due this morning. I did most of it on the bus right here. I just need to finish this last part before I go to my first period class." Bruh. He got an A on that essay. Later, I asked him why he did stuff like that. And he said something along the lines of, "I enjoy the stress of doing things so close to the deadline. The upcoming deadline forces me to finish my assignments in a fraction of the time that it would have taken me otherwise." He was superhuman and a serial procrastinator. But when the pain of stagnation exceeded the pain of action, when future consequences turned into present consequences, he immediately got to work. And as he works, the pain of action that was so intense at the beginning quickly fades and turns into positive feelings of relief and achievement. Our brains favor immediate gratification over delayed returns, and that originates from hardwired neurobiology. Our neocortex is the region responsible for higher-order brain functions like cognition, language, and spatial reasoning. The neocortex of modern humans is roughly the same size as the neocortex found in human remains from 200,000 years ago. Just a few thousand years ago, we lived in an environment where survival meant prioritizing short-term problems. I'm hungry, I look for a berry bush or a plump bird. I'm thirsty, I look for water. I see gray clouds in the distance, I look for shelter. I see a lion with sharp teeth walking towards me, I dip. And if I don't address these short-term problems, I die. Then, suddenly, none of this is an issue. Many of us have abundant access to water, calories, shelter, sleep, health, and security. And there's plenty of instant gratification within arm's reach. Every single corporation does their best to make you feel as good as possible, so you consume their products for as long as possible. The internet, delicious junk food, video games, porn, all a few clicks away. Why would I want to delay gratification? Working sucks, lifting hurts, and none of this will benefit me immediately. But how many bags of chips can I eat? How many anime series can I watch? And how many video games am I going to play before I get bored? I want to achieve great things. I want to build an empire and make a lot of money. I want to take care of the people I love. I want to be shredded. I have burning ambitions that keep me up at night, and I'm willing to pay the costs to achieve them. Then why am I not doing the work I need to do? Is there a way to change this? Here are a few things that help to make me more consistent with my work. I still sometimes procrastinate, and I still find it difficult to sit down and work. But this has helped me get from 0 to 1. Before I hit you with a list of generic productivity advice, I'm going to ask you this. How many times have you gotten an injection? Hopefully not too many. Do you remember the first time you had to get a shot? Sitting there in the clinic as a little kid, your parents promise you that no, you're just there for a regular checkup, that you won't have to get a shot. And then the doctor calls you in. He pulls out a vial of tetanus vaccine and tells you to pull up your sleeve. You realize that you have been betrayed. They swab your arm with an alcohol pad. It's cold, and the smell makes your heart beat faster. Then they pull out a huge needle. They turn to you and say that this won't hurt. Then they stab you in the arm. It hurts. You burst out crying because of the pain and because your parents lied to you. What if you have to get a shot today? You head to the clinic, the doctor stabs you with a needle, you feel a small pinch, and you head home. Why isn't it as painful as it used to be? Because pain is relative. You've been through much worse than whatever that needle can do to you. The point of the story is to rip the Band-Aid off. That work you have to get done, that damn painful thing you don't want to do, it ain't shit. The hardest part is sitting down and just starting. That part is going to be about as painful as an injection. And the pain's going to fade just as quickly once you get some momentum. Compare the worst pain you've ever felt to the sting of a needle. It doesn't even come close. That's all that sitting down to work is. The annoying sting of a needle. Do you remember the most challenging thing you've ever done? The worst pain you've ever been through, physically or mentally? A severe illness. A breakup. Being forced to run a mile in middle school as a fat kid. Breaking a bone. Beating Elden Ring level 1 without being hit. Getting stabbed. Being alone. I've been extremely lucky. The most difficult thing I've been through was my first ever wrestling meet. I was very overweight as a kid. I would climb up a single flight of stairs to get out of a subway station, and my chest would be heaving, and there would be beads of sweat on my forehead. Then I started working out in 7th grade, and I went hard, bro. 5 to 6 2-hour workouts a week, 35 rep sets, with my dinky 10-pound dumbbells and my piano bench. In 9th grade, I thought that I should try my first sport. Wrestling looked interesting, so I joined the team. I went through the weigh-in where some lady measured my body fat with calipers, and I went through the piss test where they actually make you piss in a cup. I was holding that stuff just standing there, bro, and people were walking by, staring at me, holding a cup of piss, dude. My high school was pretty small, so we had to use part of the cafeteria for practice. A bunch of people would set up the wrestling mats and mop it down before we started conditioning and drills. The coach was very nice, and all of the upperclassmen were fun to be around. Then, a few weeks later, it was time for our first sports meet with another school. We set up the wrestling mat right in the center of the gym, and I helped to bring out the metal chairs for people to sit on. I was really nervous, even though I was just participating in an exhibition match. Our manager gave each of us a banana, I guess as fuel. I wasn't about to pass up a free banana. We trimmed our nails, got changed, and sat on the metal chairs with our headgear in our laps. My heart was beating so fast, dude. I wasn't really sure why. And then it was time for the first match. One of our captains got up, walked into the center of the mat, and started wrestling. I can't remember much, but there was one thing that confused me. During every match, our coach would get down, head pressed to the mat right outside of the boundary line, and start screaming stuff at the top of his lungs, making calls and giving advice to whoever was on the mat. I thought to myself, why is he yelling? And then it was my turn. I got up, put my headgear on, and got onto the mat. I went for a couple of shots and managed to grab my opponent's leg. We kept going until the end of the first period. I think the rules were 3 2-minute periods in total. By the end of the first period, my brain just shut off. I was completely gassed. I had never done cardio before in my life, other than pacer tests and stuff like that. My lungs were burning, but I got back into position and started the second period. Can't remember much from this point on. I'm pretty sure my opponent grabbed my leg and got me down on my stomach. He was hugging my back, crushing all of the oxygen out of my lungs. I didn't know what to do, so I gathered all of the remaining energy I had and did a full push-up with him on my back to try and get on all fours and have a moment to breathe. I managed to get him off me and get into the top position. I wrapped my hands around his torso, planted my feet into the ground, and tried to pull off a reverse lift. My legs completely gave out. My body was messed up. My opponent got the upper hand, and at one point he had his arm around my neck and was jamming his head into the side of my stomach to turn me over for a pin and win the match. He was grabbing me so hard I felt like my spine would break, and his forehead was abnormally sharp. I was bracing my abs as hard as possible to stop him from turning me over. I genuinely asked myself, should I give him the pin? Should I give up? It's an exhibition match anyways. I started looking around. My teammates sitting on their metal chairs. Then I saw my coach on the mat, down on his stomach, almost touching the boundary line, and screaming advice with all of his might. I could not hear him. I'm not exaggerating. Maybe it was the headgear, but he was a couple of feet away, and I could not hear a single word he was saying. There was only the dull roar from my blood, heavy breathing, and my own loud-ass heartbeat. And then I realized, oh, that's why he was yelling. I looked back to the guy trying to turn me over. Sure, the match doesn't matter in the long run. Sure, my ribcage felt like a crumpled soda can and every single muscle in my body was running on fumes and sheer willpower. Even so, fuck this guy. I'm not going to give him the pin. I didn't feel like it. At this point, my opponent's been trying to turn me over for a solid couple of seconds. His grip began to loosen and the pressure in my side began to weaken. I wriggled out, and the third period was basically over after that. I couldn't think. I felt like I had been hit by a car. At that point, I was basically trying to stay on my feet. My opponent was just as gassed as me. Then we were told to get in position for a fourth period. I think we had scored the same number of points, and we went in for an overtime match. I don't remember anything that happened here. Afterwards, I shook hands with my opponent, and the referee raised one of her hands to signal who won. I went through the motions, and then I just immediately forgot what happened. Maybe the short-term memory part of my brain was not getting enough blood. Someone came up to me and asked if I won or lost. I guess they were in the bathroom or something. I said I couldn't remember, and that was because I genuinely did not know. I was fully focused on breathing air. People told me I did a good job. A friend told me I looked like a samurai on the mat because I had long hair at the time, and it turns out my hair was sticking out at the top of my headgear like a palm tree. I didn't say anything. I was desperately sucking in air, but it still felt like I couldn't breathe, like my chest was actually going to cave in. It felt like that time someone accidentally pitched a baseball into my chest when I was in kindergarten, times 5. I was lightheaded. Every heartbeat sent a pulse of pain through my head and forced me to grit my teeth. My fingers were bleeding because I had cut my nails too short, and the friction from wrestling had ripped some of the skin away from my fingernails. The ATP from that banana I ate was doing some serious work keeping me conscious. If you're a wrestler, then you're probably listening to this like, bruh, it isn't that bad. That's true. But to me, my first wrestling match was the worst physical and mental experience I've ever been through. Mostly because I was a fat ass for a good chunk of my life. My first match is permanently engraved into my head, and it serves as a benchmark of difficulty for everything I've done afterwards. I have to run a mile? No problem. I have to do heavy squats even though I have the virus and I can't breathe without burning the mucus lining of my nose? That's not too bad. I have to learn BC Calc in 10 days from scratch because I didn't pay attention for the entire year? That's fine. I have to sit down and do some work even though I don't feel like it? Come on, bro. Here's a list of actionable advice. I'm only including things that I use and have actually worked for me. Break down complex goals into simple, measurable steps. You know, like how Elon Musk says to use first principles thinking. Create a schedule that you'll want to follow and stick to it. For example, if you start work immediately after brushing your teeth, you'll develop a habit of immediately sitting down to work after leaving the bathroom, which reduces the pain of action. Reward yourself after finishing your work. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson said, "Don't spend your time just procrastinating, cracking the whip, then procrastinating again. Treat yourself like an employee that you need to incentivize. No one wants to be punished constantly for no reward. So why would you do that to yourself? This also reduces the pain of action. Make a serious effort to actually do the work when you say you'll do the work. Then you'll start to trust yourself. If absolutely nothing works and you need to do something drastic, then get a third party. They will be your accountability partner. Tell them to physically punch you in the balls if you don't do a specified amount of work." Thanks for watching. I haven't been uploading because I was learning how to draw. Just kidding, I was mostly procrastinating. Not anymore though. The fact that this video exists is proof that the stuff I said works. At least for me. Alright, see you around.